Hey there, Vero 311, former Marine infantryman, Revolutionary War reenactor, and amateur history enthusiast. I also collect authentic flintlock and military arms, and that is what we will be looking at today. You can think of this as like an episode 2 to the overview video I did for military flintlock muskets, which covered muskets from the American Revolutionary War till 1842. If you haven't checked that video out, please go and give it a view. While there are other flintlock rifles that are made for the US military during this time, the 18 teens common rifle, for example. These are the only two American military flintlock rifles made at a national armory. And a national armory in which they are made at is Harper's Ferry. At the time, it would have been Harper's Ferry, Virginia. It would now be Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. Harper's Ferry is where I base my collection off of, so this is very convenient to me. We will be looking at two authentic pieces, like I have mentioned. This is a model of 1803 Harper's Ferry rifle. This one is made in 1819. This was what you could call a Type 2 or the second batch of guns. And this one in front is a very unique piece, and hopefully you can recognize it. If you don't, this is a model of 1819 Hall rifle. And what makes this one unique is that it is a breech loader. It is a flintlock, it is a rifle, it is a breech loader that was designed throughout the 18 teens, is accepted in the US military in 1819, and this one is from the second batch of 1,000 made in 1826. How did we get here to the US government producing rifles out of the national armories? Well, we have to look at it from a practical way for the US military. Rifles have been heavy in American military history because of America's tradition of being on the frontier. Riflemen were used extensively during the American Revolutionary War. 10 companies of riflemen were actually built into the Continental Army when it was stood up in 1775. But you run into problems when you have these individual riflemen coming in with their individual rifles. You're going to have no standard caliber for the barrels. You're going to have different pieces. All these guns are basically craftsmen made by specific gun makers or gun stockers. If you want to see more about that, I've done videos about that. But all those guns are basically their own unique pieces of art. That can be a problem if you are trying to fit out an entire regiment of riflemen, right? If this guy has a 55 caliber barrel and this guy has a 52 caliber and this guy's got a 53, think about the logistical headache of trying to manage all that. During the 1790s, this really comes to a head after the Battle of Wabash, in which the Native Americans effectively destroy St. Clair's army in Ohio. A lot of guns are lost fighting the Native Americans in Ohio during those campaigns. Henry Knox is the first Secretary of War, and what he wants is to create national armories and then have a standardized American rifle made here. And that is what this is. This model of 1803 Harper's Ferry rifle is America's first standardized American rifle. There were when I say standardized, it doesn't mean that you can take a lock off this rifle and put it and replace a lock off another one. It's just like more or less they at least have the same caliber, they at least have the same overall feel, the same dimensions as much as you can get in the artisanal era that is late 18th century, early 19th century America. It is in a 54 caliber, is made at the National Armory, and these first go online in about 1804 and they run all the way until 1819. These rifles would have been used by the United States Marine Corps in the War of 1812, as well as the U.S. Regiment of Riflemen. This one specifically is a smoothbore because it's lost its rifling, but if you want to know more about that, check out the episode about it. But yeah, it is just your single shot, muzzle loading, flintlock rifled gun. And they saw heavy use during the War of 1812. You have your patch box right here. You pop that out, you take a patch, help you load. These guns are aesthetically very beautiful and they pull a lot from the American long rifle tradition, as you see with that angled stock and that trigger guard. Some other things about this gun is it has a non-adjustable rear sight and then just your fixed front sight post. All right, so during the 18 teens when these guns were being made, there is a man known as John Hancock Hall, and he is pushing a a new idea of a breech loading flintlock rifle. And while there have been breech loading rifles, think about the Ferguson rifle from the American Revolutionary War, John Hancock Hall is unique because he is trying to get a government contract to fill it out. And on top of just making a breech loader, he wants to have one that has completely interchangeable parts. If you want to see more about that, I have an episode on Flintlock Friday covering this rifle. But needless to say, throughout the 18 teens, he goes through the trials, and then he is actually selected to produce his guns. He's selected to produce 1,000 guns, and he doesn't even produce those until late 1822, 1823. And then they love him so much they actually extend that contract. He produces another 1,000, and that's where you get this. This is an original Harper's Ferry breech loading rifle made in 1826 from the original first 2000 contract. When I say breech loading, that's what I mean. You just push up on the latch right there, and now you pull the breech out of battery, and you can load from right there beneath the barrel. And if you think about that, okay, obviously you're going to be able to shoot faster than with a muzzle loader, but what else does that do for you? Well, if you're an infantryman and you're moving around, you're a rifleman, you're a specialist, you can now shoot from the prone, you can shoot from the kneeling. It allows you as the individual rifleman to shoot from a lot of different positions that you previously had been much more of a hassle with one of these muzzle loaders. These breech loaders have the unique distinction in all of world history is that they are the first military breech loading rifle ever made with completely interchangeable parts. And they do this through a test in which they take 100 guns apart from the 1826 batch, mind you, and they take 100 guns apart and they throw them all together and everything works perfectly. So you have now basically tying it back to the American Revolutionary War. You can see how that benefits the US military immensely. You have standard caliber, you have standard parts. When you train your armorers up, they will now have it's much easier for them to be able to take guns apart, repair them, fix them, get them back in fighting condition. Like I said, and so we'll just wrap up with the quick history. The interesting thing about both of these guns is while the breech loading Hall rifle does see service during the 1830s in the Black Hawk War, they really are kept a lot in the armories and sent to states, and they don't see heavy combat use. Whereas the model of 1803 does, and the model of 1803 is actually there with the Hall rifle all the way until the 1840s, sitting in the National Armories. This one's pretty cool for the Hall rifle because it's actually still in that original flintlock configuration, was not converted to percussion. But by the 1840s, flintlocks as a firing mechanism is on the way out, and they are replaced with the percussion system, and that is a video for another day. That is going to be a conclusion of just a simple overview of the American military flintlock rifles that were made at national armories. And now, here's a little question for you. What is the last American rifle made at a national armory? Now that I've given you about 3 seconds to guess, that would be this. This represents the last American rifle made at a national armory. This is an M1A in an M14 stock. Obviously, the M14s have a fire selector switch. This is just a semi-automatic. But this holds the unique distinction of being the last National Armory made American rifle. And that is the question I want to leave for you here today. Do you think the US military should go back to a National Armory system? Harper's Ferry is destroyed in the 1861-62 timeframe at the beginning of the Civil War, and Springfield, while thankfully it's still here, stops really producing American rifles in the 1960s, and the last gun they make is the M14. What do you think America should do? Should America go back to that tradition of having a national armory to make rifles, or should America kind of do what they've always done throughout history, all the way back to the American Revolutionary War in the 1790s? America just contracts out. The first American rifles for the US military were just contracted to Pennsylvanians to make rifles in the 1790s. So I'll leave you to think about that and have a discussion down below. That is the end of my video today. If you have any questions, comments, or anything else you want to add, please let me know. If you want to see anything else, I'll be happy to talk about it. But until the next time, thanks for watching my videos. Please like, comment, subscribe. It really helps the channel, and I really enjoy making these videos. Until next time, take care.